Hey, familia, welcome to the very first episode of In Your Business with Dr. Alex, where we get all up in your business. So today we have a very wonderful, amazing guest. I'm going to definitely let her introduce herself and share all the amazing things that she's done and what she plans to do in the future and how you can get a hold of her. But before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to the sponsor of our show today. So In Your Business with Dr. Alex is being brought to you by my really great friend, Eric McKee. He's a realtor. If you're in Northeast Ohio and you're looking for a new home, definitely reach out to my friend. He is absolutely amazing. And I'm going to put his contact info up on the screen here for you. So definitely get in touch with Eric. So I am getting ready to bring my wonderful guest up on stage here. And definitely as you're watching, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll give you a shout out. We'll answer your question as best we can. But here we go. Without further ado, here is my beautiful guest. Hi, Miss April. How are you doing?
Hello. Good morning. I'm wonderful. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. I love it. So can you tell our great audience here who's catching us, whether it's live or on the replay, definitely leave a hashtag live, hashtag replay, whenever you might be catching this, because we are streaming to a couple different platforms. We got YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter actually as well. So it's pretty awesome and amazing. And it's going to be uploaded as a podcast, as audio version as well. Cause I know I always listen to stuff on the go when I'm running around. So I wanted to make it, as accessible for people as possible. So Miss April Michelle, tell us all about you.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I feel super, super honored just to be able to share a little bit about me and what I'm doing with my business and my health. First of all, I consider myself a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I have a desire to do it all, really. But at the same time, here more recently, I've been focusing on building my business. So I am an autoimmune business coach, as well as a speaker and an author. So I just recently, my latest project has been self-publishing my own book about my own journey with inflammatory bowel disease. I was diagnosed with severe ulcerative colitis when I was 20 years old. So I'm 34, almost 35 now. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
And it's been a wild ride on the journey to acceptance and empowerment, despite living with a chronic illness. And so I think that's how you and I connected. You sent me the sweetest message on Facebook, and you were like, I just saw your post about your book, and I just think what you're doing is awesome, and I'd love to connect. So that's how I ended up here.
Yes. And so tell everybody. So I know what stopped the scroll for me when I was going through your post and I saw this. So tell everybody, what is the title of your book?
So again, my book is for a very niche audience, for a very specific audience, those who suffer from IBD or those who are surviving IBD. But the title of the book is called I Pooped My Pants removing the
Yes.
stigma of IBD, one pair of trashed underwear at a time.
Mm,
So this is what it looks like here.
I love it. Yes, it's great. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So I actually designed the cover. It was a community effort for sure. I
Mhm.
asked people in the IBD community to help me, to give me feedback as I was, creating this book. There's also 20 other stories of other IBD warriors inside the pages of this book. So it's not just my own story, but it
Mhm.
really was a community effort. But yeah, so the book was actually um, the catalyst for writing this book. The inspiration was obviously a very unfortunate accident that happened about a year ago for me. It was not the first, and it will not be the last. Um,
Mhm.
but for those who do live with inflammatory bowel disease or IBS, it's an all too common, very real problem that nobody talks about. It's like the elephant in the room, and it's not something that our bathroom habits are kind of a taboo topic anyway.
Mhm.
So it's really nice to be able to tell these stories and to be able to connect with others. So that way, for those who are going through this, for those who are newly diagnosed, or those who are still undiagnosed or experiencing symptoms and afraid to go to the doctor, um,
Mhm.
they understand that they're not alone. That yes, it might feel like the worst of the worst of the worst right now. You might be in a
Mhm.
season in your life where it's you can't really find the humor in it. You can't really find the silver lining because it all just really sucks. And
Mhm.
I definitely went through that myself. Um, and last year, when I had this experience, and it was, as I mentioned, not the first time, but I remember it was the first time that I actually laughed about it. And it was a
Mhm.
situation where I was actually doing a photo shoot that day for my business. And I was all dressed up and I went to this coffee shop, a new coffee shop that I had not been to before. I met
Mhm.
my friend that was helping me, that was my photographer. And they didn't have a public restroom, and after,
Mhm.
even normal bodied people without IBD, after you have that morning coffee, it generally tends to
Speed
kick
things
up.
up.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, no big deal. It's not an emergency situation. I'm just going to get in my car and drive up the street to the next coffee shop where I know they have
Mhm.
like a nice bathroom. Um, and I didn't make it. I didn't make it. And I
Mm.
was literally like steps outside of the door. And so I'm in the bathroom and I'm just like, this is so ridiculous. Like, here I am
Mhm.
all dressed up, so cute. And I'm just like, I cannot believe this happened. And I'm like, you know what? Someone needs to write a book about the ridiculousness of what it is that we live with on a day-to-day basis. And
Mhm.
I had a very dear friend and client at the time who was like, April, why not you? Like,
Mhm.
why not you? Why not you? Why can't you be the one to write the book and to tell the stories? And as you mentioned, like it is a very scroll stopping title.
Yes.
And I will say, like, I never thought that I was going to be the girl that pooped her pants and decided to write a book about it and and post about it online for all of her family and friends and strangers to see. But here we are.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely love it, and that's why I said I saw the image and I was like, "Oh my," I was like, "Does that say what I think it says?" And I was like, "I gotta know more." And me coming from a medical background, like, I know what ulcerative colitis is. I know what IBD, IBS. I know a lot of the GI issues that people face, and I'm wondering if you can kinda quickly tell us if somebody doesn't know what ulcerative colitis is, maybe they're just tuning in and they're like, hey, what's this show about? Like, if they don't know what is, because I think bringing awareness is so important because a lot of ulcerative colitis and IBD can really progress to some more serious conditions where you're needing like a colostomy bag and some other things that bring other challenges, not impossible challenges, but impossible, things that are going to affect your body image and stuff like that. So if somebody was tuning in and they're like, what the hell, what they talking about? IBD, IBS, ulcerative colitis, like, what is that? How would you explain it to like somebody you met on the street?
Yeah, for sure. So IBD is an autoimmune disorder where basically your immune system is overreacting to some type of trigger in your body, and it
Mhm.
is attacking your own system, your own organs. So when it comes to IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, um, it happens to be attacking the GI or your your digestive tract.
Mhm.
When it comes to Crohn's, a lot of people are familiar with Crohn's. They might have heard of that more so than ulcerative colitis, but Crohn's and ulcerative colitis are sister diseases. Um,
Mm.
Crohn's can affect anywhere from the mouth to your anus, as opposed to ulcerative colitis. It attacks mostly the large
Mhm.
intestine and anus,
Mhm.
up to the anus. So we're getting real technical here.
That
We're getting down to
trying
the
to get,
nitty gritty.
because colitis is
Yeah.
the colon part. It's the colon. That's the
Yes.
end of your digestive system at the bottom. I think some
Yes.
people don't realize that your digestive tract it's one long connecting thing that goes through your entire body. It's actually really incredible. But yeah, you can have different diseases and itises, right? The itises, you can have them all along that tract, and just colitis just happens to be in your colon at the bottom part where the poop's getting ready to come out. So we got to keep it real here. I keep it real when I explain stuff. So
And that's how it should be. And that's,
yeah.
I think that is one of the important parts of awareness and removing
Mhm.
the stigma, is being able
Mhm.
to have these conversations and be transparent about what's involved. I was talking to someone just last week how same thing has happened with breast cancer.
Mm.
Decades ago, nobody talked about it. It was something that was very hush hush, and women were dying because they were afraid to go get checked out, or they were afraid to tell people what was, these strange things that they were noticing in their body. And now, fast forward to 2022, almost 2023, we have full on campaigns about save the tatas and you know
Yeah.
save second base. And it's,
Yeah.
they've removed the stigma of talking
Mhm.
about a topic that for a lot of women brought shame. And that's
Mhm.
one of my goals with my book and using my platform and my voice is to remove the shame, remove the stigma of living with inflammatory bowel disease and everything that it encompasses. So
Mhm.
when a person is dealing with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, some of the common symptoms are urgency,
Mhm.
diarrhea, incontinence, blood in your stools, of course, ulcers throughout your body. So that's
Mhm.
bleeding ulcers,
Mhm.
weight loss, fatigue, joint pain. It's really, even though it affects your digestive system, mainly it really is a whole body disease, and it affects you in so many different ways. I know I've experienced, joint issues, vision issues. I've experienced hair loss,
Mhm.
because of course, when you're dealing with malnutrition, because your digestive system isn't working, you're not absorbing nutrients properly, and that affects you in a lot of ways as well. So being able to talk about these things, will
Mhm.
enable others who are dealing with this and feeling alone to feel empowered to make an appointment with their doctor, to say, hey,
Mhm.
you know what, I noticed when I went to the bathroom, like, that was not normal.
Mhm.
What where can we go from here? Is there a specialist? Is there something, is there someone that I can see, to get this checked out? And um, in my case, I actually was diagnosed really quickly from the onset of my symptoms. I think within 3 months, I had gotten my diagnosis. It had progressed so quickly from the sign of the first symptoms of blood and mucus in my stool to extreme weight loss and just major blood loss.
Mhm.
It was within 2 to 3 months that I had gotten my
Mhm.
diagnosis. And I'm thankful for the quick diagnosis, but even after diagnosis, it wasn't a smooth a smooth journey from there. I was in
Mhm.
and out of the hospital quite a bit. Um, and this was again like 14, 15 years ago. And this was before the age of like hashtag autoimmune warrior or hashtag
Mhm.
IBD warrior.
Mhm.
So at the time it felt very isolating and
Mhm.
very lonely and very embarrassing. I was like, I'm the only one who I know that has this
Mhm.
disease. So now I just decided, you know what, I'm going to write the book and I'm going to tell the stories that I wish I would have heard and that I wish I would have had whenever I
Mhm.
was first diagnosed. So that way that young man or young woman who is dealing with this on their own,
Mhm.
like I said, they can feel empowered to reach out and to get help.
Mhm. So many good things, so many great lessons you just taught us about right there. And so much of like what I advocate for too is like being empowered, being proactive, knowing what the fuck's going on in your body and noticing when stuff starts to go wrong, and knowing what's normal for you and not normal for you, because we're all different. And not being afraid to look in the toilet after you go to the bathroom. Don't be afraid to look at your pee. Don't be afraid to look at your poop, because those are such great indicators of what's happening inside of your body. And as healthcare professionals, we're all up in people's business. We're all up
Yes.
in people's pee and people's poop and all of that. We're asking you about it constantly. We're like, that's all we talk about most of the time. And so the regular average person needs to be like at that comfort level with their own bodies. And it's kind of like a shame sometimes where most people are just afraid to touch themselves, look at themselves, be aware, be self aware of the things that are going on with their bodies until it's like really too late. Like all the signs were there, and it, little by little by little, and that stuff, it what we call insidious is kind of how we term it, but little by little by little, and then one day it's like bam, and it's like, what happened? Like, where did this come from? When all the while it's been brewing, it's been going on. You just didn't pick up on the signs that your body was sending you. And I love that you are making it just, the normal thing to talk about now. And again, just like me with my platform, we got to be okay with talking about things and sharing our stories. And because we're more similar, we do have people, and just like you felt alone with your diagnosis and stuff, you really weren't alone. But in that moment, you felt isolated and alone because you didn't realize that, that, and maybe not even, now that I'm thinking about it, there's not that much stuff like with what you have put out here into the world. There's not a lot of stuff like that out here. So you're like trailblazing, you're leading the way in that. And I thank you for that so much. I really thank you for that. And that's why I said, I when I messaged you, I was like, I love the title of this book. I was like, this is amazing. We got to talk about it, and more people need to know about this, because so many people do deal with this, and they might even know something's up, but they're afraid to go to the doctor. What would you say to somebody if they were listening and they kind of picked up on all your symptoms and they're like, I kind of got that going on, but they're afraid to go to the doctor? What would you say to them?
Well, exactly what you just said is feeling empowered. Knowledge is power. And a
Mhm,
lot of times, as you mentioned, we think, oh, I just want to stick my head in the sand. If I just ignore it, it'll go away. But
mhm,
unfortunately, that's not the case when it comes to our health. We have to be proactive when it comes to our health. Um,
mhm,
and also, I've mentioned similarly to like my clients before as well, is that our body usually starts speaking to us in whispers. And if
mhm,
we don't learn how to listen, then eventually those whispers get louder and louder and louder till eventually our body is screaming at us and it's forcing us to listen. So if we don't listen when symptoms are mild,
mhm,
and we don't take action, it's only going to progress from there until we
mhm.
are literally we're dropped on our rear ends and like
Yeah,
we have to pay attention.
exactly.
So it's so much better to take a proactive stance in your health in those beginning stages. I know myself, I was young. I was 20 years old when I was diagnosed, and
Mhm,
I didn't think, who thinks they're going to be diagnosed with a chronic illness at a young
mhm,
age? It was at a time in my life when I was going 100 miles an hour in a million different directions.
mhm,
No was not in my vocabulary. I said yes to every invitation, every favor that was asked of me. And, I just thought I was invincible until,
mhm,
my body taught me otherwise.
mhm,
And looking back, even though, the initial like IBD symptoms of blood in my stool, like it started, at a certain time, I really feel like my body had been trying to tell me for a little
mhm,
while before that.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and, again, I didn't listen, but,
Oh,
I'm at peace with that now. That's another thing too. A lot of people go through these feelings of guilt, like, "Oh, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, and if I would
mhm,
have done this, things might have turned out differently." And, we kind of play the blame game and things like that with ourselves. But that is one of the reasons why, again, like I want people to feel empowered to make these decisions, to reach out to their doctor. That's one of the resources inside the book as well, is what questions to ask your doctor whenever you go. A lot of times we have all this stuff in our mind, and then when we get there, we're like, the doctor's like, so what brings you in?
Mhm.
And so it's like coming prepared with questions. Again, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health. So if someone is dealing with any of these symptoms that you think might be like, that's not normal, make the
Mhm.
call, like today. Make the call today with your primary doctor, and explain to them what's going on. And of course, if your primary doctor sees a need to refer you to a specialist, then listen,
Mhm.
do it. Your health is worth it. You are worth it. So for sure, if you're dealing with any of these types of symptoms, get help.
I love that. And that's such a powerful resource to have in your book and for people to really pay attention to and utilize, because when things are new and we don't know things, it's hard to ask a question about something we don't have a clue about. And it's like you're wanting to ask questions, or people are like, well, what questions do you have? They're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. It's very similar to like when you're starting your business and like there's so much unknown, and you're like, and like you might start working with a new coach or in a mastermind or in a program, and like, well, what questions do you have? And all this is like, I don't even know what question to ask, because I don't know what I should know or what I should know or anything like that. And I think that's a really good segue into your business and to how you are a mentor and a coach to other women with autoimmune disorders for their business. And can you tell me a little bit about how you maybe kind of like, um, I don't know how I want to word this, like, because women, do you primarily work with just women, or is it anybody? Or
I've
is it?
worked with men too, but for some reason, I think women just naturally tend to
Yeah,
I tend to
same here.
attract a lot of mostly female clients.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. So when you're dealing with women and they come to you, and I think there is that special bond already, right? Because of the whole chronic, disease thing, and like, somebody understands me, somebody knows me, and so you feel that level of trust and comfort already just because of that. How do you help them, deal with the whole chronic disease and the whole business thing, because we both know it's a beast. It's something entirely different. And then, I had my own health problems that I dealt with high blood pressure and being pre-diabetic and overweight and stuff. So I know that taking care of your health, and that's why I use my platform too, and just like you were promoting health, and taking care of yourself, being proactive. How do you work with your ladies in your program? How do you really help them to I don't want to say balance too. Everybody gets triggered when I say the word balance, but how to work the two together to, have to be productive and to have results in both areas of their life.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So I realized, I'll use my personal experience for that. I realized actually kind of at the start of the pandemic. I think for a lot of us with chronic illness as well, the pandemic definitely gave us quite an increase in our anxiety as far as like being out in
Mhm.
the public, working, in close quarters with others. And that was one of the reasons why, I was looking for options to be able to work from home, to be able to support myself without having to be, not working so closely in the public. But not only that, I realized I had kind of gotten to the point where I was dragging myself to a job, and it wasn't a horrible job. I actually really enjoyed, my
Mhm.
coworkers. I enjoyed what I did, but when I was flaring so badly, it just really interrupted my life.
Mm.
And I realized that I wanted to design a life and business that worked for me,
Mhm.
not the other way around. And that's how I found the world of virtual assisting. And that's, if anybody looks up, what I do. So I'm a VA coach. So I teach women how to build their own businesses from home as a virtual assistant with skills that they already have. And one of the things that we talk about in my program is specifically setting boundaries, learning how to, again, set like with contracts and boundaries in place, policies and procedures in your business,
Mm.
to where you build a business that works around you. Again, not the other way around. So being able to have, a morning routine or an evening routine that
Mhm.
is, that starts your day off right, that ends your day right, that allows you to focus on movement and help, like you're not running and you're not constantly stressed all the time, but being able to manage your day and your time in a way that allows your nervous system to have a break, to have a
Mhm.
rest. Because if we are waking up stressed every single day, going to a job that is, you know, killing us, like what is that doing for our nervous system? What is that doing for our health? So
Mhm.
when we can take a step back and we can slow down, I really feel like we can get a lot more done. So that way we're not like hustling ourselves into the ground Monday through Friday, and then we're in bed all weekend just to get back up and do it all over again on Monday.
Could you quickly to interject, could you explain why for people, especially with a chronic disease, why it's so important to not overstress yourself and to not do exactly what you were talking about?
Well, it's a vicious cycle, really. I mean, stress tends to be, I mean, I don't want to say the number one trigger, but it's my number
Mhm.
one trigger. I feel like
Mhm.
for flares.
Mhm.
So being able to manage my stress level, being able to manage the amount of clients or the amount of projects I take on, that for me is being proactive about my health.
Mhm.
I am a recovering people pleaser. As I said, like,
Mm.
it's in my nature to want to say yes, and it's in my nature to want to do all the things for everybody, right? I
Yeah.
think that's probably why one of the reasons why I got into coaching as I did, because I do love helping people.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I realize that I limit myself whenever I try to do all the things. I
Mhm.
actually limit my ability to make a greater impact when I'm spreading myself so thin.
Mhm.
So by focusing more on the things that really light me up and doing more of that, I found that I avoid the burnout and I avoid the flare. And that's one of, kind of my taglines as far as, my business. I say it all the time is I want you to build a life and a business that lights you up without burning you out.
Mm.
And so that's really my main goal in working with, my clients, and as well as in my own business as well. I constantly have to like bring in the reins, like, okay, April, like you might be doing too much. And even my husband, he's gotten in on it. He's like, April, don't forget, like,
Mhm.
you remind me that like you have a chronic illness. So like I'm going to remind you, don't forget you have a chronic illness. So you need to like to treat yourself like you have a chronic illness.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's so important. And those happiness chemicals, right? The things that get released when we're in our zone, when we're in the flow, when we're doing what we love, those have healing properties. That's why people tell
Thank
you
you.
to do
Yes.
things that you love and things that you enjoy, things that make you happy, things that make you laugh, things that make you smile, because those really do release certain types of chemicals that have healing effects on your body. Compare that and contrast that to stress and overwhelm, worry, anxiety, depression. All that shit releases all the antagonists against all of that. And it just is so harmful for your body, especially when you have a chronic disease where things are already somewhat compromised, things are somewhat kind of iffy, parts of your body are not too happy anyway. And you want to do right, you want to release more happy chemicals to make those parts of your body happy that are not angry. Because I always compare things that are inflamed to things that are angry. So sometimes when I'm describing wounds and things, if I'm teaching a class or doing something, I say, it's very angry looking. It's red, it's irritated, it's angry. And we want to calm those things down. So what's the opposite of that? And that's how your body works. And that's why it's so important to do these things more naturally, more holistically. And I think that's really the aim of your business as well, from what you were just speaking about, is taking a more holistic approach, because all the bits and pieces are connected, everything, and
Yeah.
you in turn are connected to your business, and you want to show up and you want to be there and you want to serve and you want to do all the things, and then you're a mom and a wife and all the things, and that takes energy. It takes so much energy and so much of you. And so I love that you just wrap that all up in how you care for your clients and how you care for yourself. I love that. And it absolutely shows, girl. Absolutely shows, because you've done accomplished so much. It's
Aw.
Fantastic. And so I want to ask real quickly, what kind of tips would you give for an aspiring writer, right? But particularly one that has a chronic disease and might be afraid to share their story. Not that they maybe have the same thing that you do, but if they have some other type of chronic disease and they feel somewhat inspired and they're like, shit, maybe I could write a book. What were some tips or some words of advice that you would give them?
Oh, I love that question. Because I did struggle a bit as I was writing this. I had to, and I kept coming back to, again, April, what did you need to hear whenever
Mhm.
you were first diagnosed? Um, and so think about that one person, or even it might even be yourself, pre-diagnosis or in that stage of life,
Mhm.
um, that you're wanting to help that one person, and write for that one person. Write as if like you're writing a letter to that one person, like everything that they need to know, and only that person. Because there were certain times when I was writing, in my own story, that I'm like, oh, do I really want to share that? Like, do I really? But then I kept going back to, yes, April, like you need to, even though I knew like all my family and friends and strangers are going to be reading this, I thought, but the person who it's for will get it.
Yep.
The people who need it will get it, and they will
Mhm.
appreciate it, and they will value it, and it's going to change their life. And the people
Mhm.
who it's not for, that's not who we're writing to. We're writing to the one person who needs to hear this message, who needs you to tell your story. And there's actually one of my favorite quotes. It's by Brene Brown. She's like a life coach and speaker. And she
Mhm.
says, tell your story, because one day it's going to become someone else's survival guide.
Oh.
So, and that's really what I kept coming back to is like, if I really want somebody to be able to take everything away from this book and this, these stories that I'm telling, like I need to be as transparent as possible. Um,
Mhm.
and so that's what I kept coming back to, and then that's how the book was born.
Ah, I love it. I'm so glad you birthed that book, girl. I'm so glad. So, real quickly, I'm curious, are there any particular groups that you are a part of that have supported you and helped you along in your journey? Is there anything?
Yeah, for sure. So one particular group that I'm especially proud to be a part of is COCHI. It's COCCI, Color of Crohn's and Chronic Illness, and it actually specifically is for people of color who are dealing with Crohn's and other chronic illnesses, obviously.
Mhm. Mhm.
And basically, it's a platform that gives a voice to people that might not, that might feel underserved in the
Mhm.
medical community.
Mhm.
So I'm an ambassador for that program. And yeah, that group has been
Yeah.
such a godsend for me. And then, of course, there's some other different groups and things like that, like on Facebook, different Facebook
Mhm.
groups, like
Mhm.
support groups and things like that, that I found a lot of just community in.
Mhm. Mhm.
I will say the IBD community online has been one of the most supportive communities I've ever been a part of.
Well,
I found that even though, I mean, it does affect your mental health. I mean, having a chronic
mhm.
illness, even though it's a physical disease, it does affect us mentally and emotionally. And so being able to have a community, whether it's in person or online, that you can share your struggles with, that checks in on you if they
Mhm.
haven't heard from you in a while, it's so
Mhm.
important, so important.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, community support, and it is, and it helps with the whole isolation, and you're not alone, and to really just support you in that because it can, and especially with the pandemic and with everything else. I mean, so many people felt isolated and alone and separated. And I'm glad that you have that group. That's incredible. That's amazing, and that you're an ambassador for. I mean, that is so perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Um, let's see your book again. Can you hold up your book again? Because we're
Yes.
going to wrap things up. And so this is the book. Make sure you go out and get it. We're going to leave links so that you can, and I think I actually did in the description put a link to her book so that way you can pick it up and get it, give it to somebody, whatever it is.
Yes. would make a great gift, really. If you know
Yes.
anybody who's dealing with this, especially if they're newly diagnosed,
Mhm.
it would make a wonderful, wonderful gift.
And I think too, and especially with you, since you were diagnosed so young, and I think, 20 is still young, right? 20 is still a baby. 20 is still young. And just thinking about all the shit I was still going through as a 20-year-old. And I can't even imagine like throwing on top something like a chronic disease diagnosis like that. And what and you connect so well, like your vibe is so well connected to a younger audience as well. And I feel like, man, these young people need to hear your story. They need to get your book, because it's like a lot of the stuff out here is just like way over people's heads and just not geared towards them, and especially minorities, especially people of color. Like, and that's why I do a lot of my stuff all about that too, because just mainstream stuff just doesn't hit home, just doesn't connect with a lot of people because of the experiences and the stories and the lived experiences. So I love that you were brave enough to share your story. That's amazing, fantastic. I love it. So where can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
For sure. So on Instagram, I am virtually April Michelle.
Mhm.
Also, my website, which is actually portal.virtuallyaprilmichelle.com. Also, if you're wanting more information about the book, you can go to ipoopedmypantsbook.com. It's also available on Amazon as well. So you can just search I Poop My Pants Book. It should show up pretty in one of the first few searches. And yeah, I'm also active on Facebook and LinkedIn as well.
Mhm.
So definitely, yeah, reach out, send me a DM if this is a topic that that affects you personally or someone that you know. Please reach out. I'm always having conversations in the DMs with different ones.
Mhm.
I love to be supportive and meet you wherever you are, whether you're newly diagnosed, whether you've been in this circus for a while. That's one of the things that truly lights me up. And so definitely reach out, Instagram, Facebook, or on my website.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Well, I have really appreciated you being my first guest, and I've appreciated this conversation so much. We'll definitely do more conversations like this about all kinds of other topics, because we could talk about so much. So much. But thank you, April. I appreciate it. I love you. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
And this is the end of the first episode of In Your Business with Dr. Alex. And I hope we got all up in your business today. So, all right, guys, until the next video, we'll see you later.